Hello everyone, it's Darkseeker here again. Welcome back for another video. It is the October season and we're ranking up, this time with Aggro Druid. I've been playing a lot of Priest recently and I fancied a little bit of a change. So 11 games played so far, an 82% win rate. Yes, I know, it's a very small sample, but still relatively impressive considering that this deck has been beating a lot of the tier 1 or tier 2 decks on the ladder, and the deck that I'm playing is the Slizzle466's Aggro Druid. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And it takes advantage of a couple of new cards that the Frozen Throne expansion introduced. Crypt Lord in particular is the MVP card of this deck, because basically the Crypt Lord, its health total grows every time you put minions on the board, and then essentially you play Crazed Alchemist and Savage Roar and destroy your opponent. And you'll see a few highlights in this video of how effective Crypt Lord can be. Druid suffered from a few nerfs recently. In particular, Innovate was nerfed, and Innovate in Aggro Druid was considered useful, I guess, because you could innovate out a lot of minions quite early, get quite a significant board presence going, and then just snowball with buff effects. So I guess Crypt Lord and Druid of the Swarm, it kind of makes up for the loss of Innovate, because Crypt Lord is a significant body that can stick on the board and last for quite some time, and aggro decks in particular can find it really hard to kill the Crypt Lord because of the health total that just keeps growing. Other than Crypt Lord and Druid of the Swarm, this deck is pretty much what you'd expect from Aggro Druid. Play as many cards as you can, play Jeeves, refill your hand. And if your Crypt Lord gets taken down, well, there's always Living Mana, which combos very nicely with Savage Roar and your other buff effects. So there are different ways to win games with this deck. So let's start off on the Wild Mode ladder. We are moving towards rank 10, but we're going to start off at rank 15 and we're going to go up against a Warlock. So, figuring out the mulligans in this deck, you want 1-drops, and oh, this was probably slightly greedy on my part. I saw the Crypt Lord and my eyes lit up and I thought, oh yeah, let's keep the Crypt Lord. And that's not the 1-drop we were looking for. But yeah, you really want a curve in the early game. You know, a 1 into a 2, into a buff effect. And as I say, that's not the 1-drop we were after. So maybe I should have mulliganed that slightly better. Well, there's a good 1-drop. But we're not going to play it. Playing the Crypt Lord there is more sensible, because now what we can do on turn 3 is we can play the Firefly and the other token, and we can buff with Mark of the Lotus. Tar Creeper is a bit of a roadblock though for us, and maybe we just ignore it for now. Yeah, we'll ignore it, and we'll deal with it next turn. We have another buff effect in hand. Oh wow, Hellfire. Okay. Well, at least that allows us to punch through his Tar Creeper. But in response, we're just going to refill the board here. And we're going all in. We've seen the Hellfire. Yes, the Warlock will have other AoE, but presumably it's going to be more expensive in terms of, let's say, Twisting Nether. I seriously doubt he plays Fellfire Potion. The only other thing we've got to look out for then in terms of AoE is Defile. So we just need to watch the health totals of our minions and just try and play around Defile as best as possible. Just need to remind myself which of my minions is a beast here. Draw a card. That's good. So we can play everything now. The Crazed Alchemist, usually I'd want to save it for my Crypt Lord and Savage Roar. But in this case, removing the Drake is ideal because you want to play around sort of Shadow Flame shenanigans. So if possible, we don't want to leave anything on his board. Or at least anything with significant attack power. Crazed Alchemist is also really good against Doomsayer, and since the Frozen Throne expansion, control decks have seen a resurgence, especially with Priest. So a lot of the control decks play Doomsayer, and Crazed Alchemist deals with that very, very nicely. Shadowbolt and Bran there, a bit of a desperation play on his part. He's just looking to get something down on the board. And once again, we're just going to keep the board clear. I mean, should I have been more aggressive on these last two turns? Should I have just pushed more damage face rather than trading with his minions? Would the game be over now if I'd been more aggressive? It's an interesting question. So yeah, aggro decks do require an element of thought. Often you do have to consider trades very carefully, and you also have to consider AoE as well. How far, how much do you play into AoE? It's a very important question.
Can I help you, sir?
And again, we don't have lethal, so I'm making trades. Again, let's address why I'm trading. Power Overwhelming Shadow Flame could seriously ruin my day, potentially, so just being ultra cautious here. Okay, Siphon Soul of my highest attack minion. Well, he thought it was my highest attack minion. Crazed Alchemist Cryptlord combo. We don't even need the Savage Roar. It's over. Okay, we're going up against a Priest. Now, Priest is one of those classes that is, certain kinds of Priest, particularly Control Priest, Reno Priest. Since the Frozen Throne expansion, Priest has seen a resurgence and has become a tier 1 class, or certain decks within Priest have become tier 1 decks, is what I'm trying to say. The test here is whether this Druid deck can be aggressive enough to kill the Priest quickly enough before all of the big AoE comes down. We'll see what kind of a Priest it is. The assumption is that he's playing the Death Knight, playing Reno, playing Razar, and he'll be going for his 0-cost hero power. It could also be Big Priest, although seeing the Loot Hoarder makes me think that it's not Big Priest. We get the Crypt Lord down very early here, and we're very conscious of Shadow Word Pain, but I'm taking the gamble here and just hoping that he doesn't have it. If he doesn't have it, we could snowball very, very quickly. Okay, he doesn't have it. That's good. Now, making a 4-4 there is really, really good for us. It's out of Shadow Word Pain range, out of Shadow Word Death range. And this board now, overall, is relatively threatening. Okay, even with the silence, it doesn't kill the minion. Oh, okay. I stand corrected. My board is now dead. Shadow Word Horror there, really good for him. But like you saw in the Warlock game, we are just going to refill the board. and challenge him once again to say, do you have a way of clearing my board? Can you regain control? And it looks like the answer is no. Or he's waiting. Waiting for me to commit more to the board. So I'm just going to go all in now. I think you have to go all in against Priest. You can't play too conservatively. You just have to hope and pray, take the gamble and the risk that, you know, that their board clears are just not there when they need them to be there. That was his turn 6. There was no Dragonfire Potion, which basically now means I win the game. Once again, Crazed Alchemist Cryptkeeper combo, but with Savage Roar this time. And we have the win. Look at that damage. That is absolutely insane. This is the kind of damage that Pirate Warrior can only dream of doing. Okay. We're going up against a rogue now. And rogue games are always interesting because you make the assumption, first of all, it's Miracle Rogue. And they're interesting games because the rogue can take one of two approaches. They can take a slow approach, where they build up lots of cards, spells, cheap spells, play auctioneer, draw more cards, maybe along with a questing adventurer, but that can happen quite late in the game as they wait to build those cards up. Alternatively, a rogue can take a bit of a quicker approach. Like you see here, an 8/8 Vancleef already on the board. And this is looking quite problematic for us because our little tokens there certainly doing nothing to contest the Vancleef. That's a problem. That's a real problem. And he's going face. I don't blame him. I'd go face too. 8 damage is pretty good. Couple more turns of 8 damage and we're basically dead. So now I'm saying to the rogue, well, okay, I'm going to race you. I can do damage too. And that's pretty impressive, you know, for turn 3 to have this kind of board presence, pretty impressive. Now, if there wasn't a Vancleef on board, I'd be feeling much more confident in terms of winning this game, but that Vancleef is just going face. But this is typical of Rogue, you know, he went all in on those first 2 turns, made the Vancleef, and he's had very little to do since then. But I've got lots that I can do each turn. I just play as many cards as I can. My cards are cheap. My cards, my buff effects interact with the bodies on board. And I'm just debating, do I trade with the Vancleef? No, I don't. Just go face. Hope that he doesn't have Sap and Eviscerate. I believe that's what he would need precisely to kill me. But yeah. Every turn there, just playing as much as I can, building as big of a board as I can. And as we head into the mid-game, his deck was just too slow for me. That's interesting. Even with the Vancleef on the board doing 8 damage a turn, we still managed to outpace him. Okay. Heading into our next game here. And we're going up against another priest. Now, this is for rank 10, so there's a lot at stake. Now, as I went from rank 12 to rank 10, the games did become a lot more difficult, and I was facing players that were probably better, making better decisions, and not sure about that decision, though. I mean, I understand why he made it. He wants to keep the board clear, but surely you wait until you have something like a Blood Mage Thalmos and then do that combo with Spirit Lash later in the game to kill 2 health minions. That just felt like a little bit of a waste, knowing that more tokens will be on the way. The question is, Mark of Yasharaj, what do I put it on? I'm going to put it on the Haunted Creeper. Just so I can get my 3 attack in now. Feels a bit greedy. But and also, actually, maybe it wasn't such a good decision because my creeper is now vulnerable to Shadow Word Pain. But I wanted my 3 damage. Okay, just play stuff. Once again, with Priest, I think you just have to go all in and just hope that they don't have the board clears. You have to kill them as quickly as possible. Mass Dispel, wow, okay. That card is making a comeback. I've seen it a few times today on this journey to rank 10. So, Mass Dispel is going to slow me down a little bit. I mean, it didn't remove anything from my board, but it did negate the buff effect, so it is going to slow me down just a little bit. But we have the Savage Roar. Let's see what kind of AoE he's got. He's hunting for AoE, interesting. So, turn 6, he did not have Dragonfire Potion. That's really important information, but he had the Shadow Word Pain. Oh, he's just dead. Just like that. Just like that. If you don't have the AoE, you're dead. And we just get patches in there, just for laughs. And yeah, wow indeed. I think that sums up his reaction and my reaction perfectly. Okay, so Slizzle466's Aggro Druid deck. What do I think of the deck? Well, it's first of all very effective. The games are quick, and this deck took me from rank 15 to rank 10 within a couple of hours. I was even able to play it on my phone in the gym on the cycling machine. It was brilliant. As I say, quick games. You know very quickly whether you'll be winning or losing, but even if it looks like your opponent is making a comeback, and if they use their AoE and if they use their board clear effects, well, you've got cards like Living Mana, which can regain you the board, give you back that board presence. So, Crypt Lord, Crazed Alchemist, and Savage Roar is your big win condition, but Living Mana with Savage Roar or Living Mana and a buff effect or 2 can also win you the game. Now, just want to point out that Crypt Lord as a card is very hard. It makes it very hard for aggro decks to gain any momentum, because as the Crypt Lord grows, as the health total just keeps growing and growing and growing, you have aggro decks that end up having to sacrifice all of their low health or low attack minions into the Crypt Lord just to try and kill it. The Crypt Lord typically has 1 attack, but if you've buffed it up with Power of the Wild or with Mark of the Lotus, it can eat up other opposing minions very, very quickly. Control classes can also have a hard time dealing with it, although Priest does have Shadow Word Pain, and that's really the best spell to use to kill the Crypt Lord, presuming that its attack power is 3 or below. Other classes like Mage may have Polymorph, but that's rare. But even spells like Fireball and Frostbolt may not kill the Crypt Lord because, as I say, its health can just keep on growing, putting it out of range of various spells. And Freeze Mage, of course, does have an ideal answer to Crypt Lord, Doomsayer. Frost Nova, but then that's why you run Crazed Alchemist in the deck, not just to switch the health and attack on your Crypt Lord and then let you kill your opponent, but you run Crazed Alchemist to kill Doomsayers as well, thus saving your board. So overall, this Aggro Druid is really good against control classes because you can deal with Doomsayer. And it's really good against other aggro classes because you're playing these minions wide on the board, you're buffing them up, but you're also playing taunts through Druid of the Swarm and Crypt Lord and buffing those up too, making it very difficult for other aggro decks to punch through and make progress. So I hope you enjoyed the video. This is a very cheap deck to make. Patches is the only legendary in the deck, so if you have patches, making the rest of the deck should be quite cheap. Maybe you want to make it, give it a try, and then leave a comment or two telling me what you think. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, I would be very grateful, and I'll see you all again very soon for more Hearthstone Wild Mode action.